going on in the area, a lot of looting, some smashing of windows, things like that. It is not safe to be out. Take care of your family, take care of yourself, take care of your home, and stick around. Right now you're taking a look at the Bay Bridge from the water, and it's pretty easy to see what happened Tuesday afternoon. As I mentioned earlier, there were people who were stranded on the bridge. They were forced to walk off, and this was not a very pleasant task, but of course this is about the only way they were going to get anywhere that afternoon, leaving most of their belongings in their car, leaving their cars, and it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to get them back. Of course, the latest word is that the Bay Bridge may be reopened for some traffic as early as Thursday. That's not definite, but we're going to have to see what happened. There were a number of injuries on the Bay Bridge, and the encouraging thing out of all this is to see a lot of heroic stories, a lot of people helping other people and seeing what happened.
All the people off the bridge now.
So you're just going to turn the cars around and try to get them off?
The best way we can. Yes, ma'am.
Right now we're going to take a look at some home video that was taken by a motorist on the Bay Bridge on the lower deck Tuesday afternoon, shortly after the earthquake at 5:04. And you can get an up-close look and see that people kept a pretty good calm during the situation. But there was some panic. In fact, there were some people who were not aware that a part of the bridge had ruptured on the upper deck. And I believe we have some other video that we're going to go to in just a second. And you will see a car that just did not know what had happened.
2 cars.
And if you are going to drive during the night, if you have to drive during the morning hours, commuting to work, you would want to leave a little earlier, I would suspect. Take your time. You're going to have to make maybe a long route along the San Mateo Bridge, maybe over the Golden Gate Bridge. And you're not going to want to go too fast because you don't know what you're going to run into. Anything could happen at this point. Of course, this is a very, very tough situation right now for rescue crews. They are working through the night. And of course, what happened at 880, the Cypress stretch, is just so tragic. The estimate is that there are going to be 200 deaths, 400 injuries. That is apart from anywhere else in the Bay Area. Rescue crews have been on the scene. Leslie Griffith explained to us a little earlier, some cars flattened to the dimensions of a license plate. Crews working through the night trying to save people. And we are going to check in a little bit later with the live report with one of our Channel 2 reporters as soon as we can get that hooked up for you and find out the latest on the situation. That is 880, the Cypress stretch, 1.5 to 2 miles, and it is truly unbelievable. There are no adjectives to describe what has happened this evening. I've been in California exactly a year to the day. And it's interesting, I had only felt an aftershock from an earthquake a few months ago. I didn't feel the actual earthquake that had happened during the night. The next morning there was an aftershock. Felt like somebody was tapping me on the shoulder at most, and somebody said, "Did you feel that?" And I said, "That was it." And then this afternoon we had what we had, and somebody said, "Well, did you feel that one?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "I've lived here all my life, and if you lived through this one, it doesn't matter how long you've been here, you are a definite veteran." And right now, let's see what we comments from San Francisco, people coming off the ferry this afternoon and what they experienced when the earthquake hit.
Sure.
What was it like in the city?
It's pretty bad, it really is. A lot of the older buildings are a lot of cracks and so on, a lot of glass on the streets.
Where were you working?
I work at 423 Washington Street right downtown. I was on BART getting ready to come out of the city when it happened. In fact, I was underground in the Montgomery station.
How'd you feel?
I felt very scared. I mean, because the pillars and all the support beams inside the station were all moving and everything else. It was very scary.
Okay.
People running everywhere.
Where were you working?
At One Market Plaza,
What floor?
4th.
How'd it feel?
I don't know. By the time I got out of the building, I jumped on the bus to the East Bay. I got trapped on the bridge when it collapsed.
You were on the bridge?
Yeah,
How close were you to the collapse?
100 feet.
What did it look like?
I don't know. There were a couple of cars trapped under the edge of the slab, and it seemed like the whole bottom had collapsed into the bay. So it looked scary, but I guess a lot of people running around, It was spooky for a while.
What was it like in the city?
Horrendous. It was awful.
Where were you working?
Neiman Marcus on the 4th floor, and there was glass everywhere, and it was really frightening. I don't want to go through it again.
Never.
How was it for you?
It was awful. Well, I work in gift galleries, and we have a lot of crystal, and it was falling off the shelves and breaking, and everything was falling, and there was no place to run. No, nowhere. We all work at Neiman Marcus.
Remember, in times like this, that God is in control, and you'll be all right.
Yeah. And
How was
she
it for
works
you?
in our
Horrible. It was scary, but I trust in the Lord, and I knew I was going to be all right. But we got to the terminal, and they said the bridge had collapsed. Did it really collapse?
Yes.
My Lord. All I was worried about was my daughter. She works at iMagnon, and all the windows were gone in that store.
It is at moments like this when communities pull together, you see a lot of good Samaritans around helping other people who are truly in need. Unfortunately, in these situations, it is definite that you are going to find civil disobedience. There have been reports of looting throughout the city of San Francisco, I believe some in Oakland. It is just part of the territory when things like this happens. However, the police say things are pretty much under control. It could be a lot worse. Right now, we're going to go take a look at the fires in Marina Green area in San Francisco. As they said in 1906, it wasn't really the earthquake that caused most of the damage. It was the problems with the gas. And this is evidence. This is tragic. We did our 2 at Noon program from Candlestick, previewing Game 3 of the World Series. Who knew that 4 or 5 hours later that the game wouldn't be played because of things like this? It makes everything else seem very trivial at this time. Homes in the Marina Green area, 3-story homes becoming 2-story homes. Homeowners just wondering what they're going to be doing. Of course, this lends itself to a lot of power outages. Between 500,000, 1 million people left without electric power as a result of the earthquake. That's from PG&E. That's an estimate from them. One of their spokesmen says power is expected to be restored to about 1/4 of San Francisco by 10:30 Wednesday morning, 10:30 this morning. The outages affect San Francisco, the peninsula region to the south. There were outages earlier this evening in Contra Costa County. Power came on again about 8:30, 9 o'clock. The Temblor knocked out PG&E generators at Hunters Point. And the Potrero district in San Francisco also damaged 2 switching stations in the city, disrupted transmission lines, bringing power into the region from other areas. The PG&E spokesman says California's 6 nuclear reactors survived the quake without damage. PG&E, of course, has 2 reactors at Diablo Canyon near San Luis Obispo, 240 miles south of San Francisco. Southern California Edison has 3 reactors in the Orange County, San Diego County line area. And that's about what's going on where that is concerned right now. The power is being restored. PG&E doing their best to make sure that the gas problems don't erupt any farther and that the people get electricity back as quickly as possible. Again, if you're watching us on a battery-powered television, you can hear what's going on. If you have any unnecessary appliances unplugged, you don't have power in your house, unplug them, because when the power comes back on, there is that surge, and a lot of problems could be caused by that, and you cannot be too careful in this situation. Mayor Art Agnos was obviously on his way to Candlestick if he hadn't already gotten there. He surveyed the situation in San Francisco by air, thought the city could have looked a lot worse. Certainly the damage was bad, and we have some comments from him right now, I believe, on what he saw and that things are calm and he's got things in charge. Okay, we will get Mayor Art Agnos in a little bit. Right now, we're going to check in with Los Gatos. That, of course, is the area near the epicenter. It was about 10 miles north of the Santa Cruz area. The latest we hear, 8 deaths in Santa Cruz County. The Richter scale puts this earthquake at roughly 7, the worst since 1906. And right now, let's hear from some witnesses in the Santa Cruz, Los Gatos area.
Where you were and then
I'm
what
stuck. I was at San Jose State when the earthquake hit on the 6th floor of Clark Library.
How did it feel?
Scary. It was very scary.
Can you describe it?
Just, it kept shaking. We really thought this was it. And the building shook for several minutes afterwards. Then we went down the stairs and they said, everybody get out of the building. Teacher canceled class, obviously. We all tried to get home, but we couldn't.
At this point in time, it appears that we're stabilizing. We don't have any reports of fatalities at this point in time. There are some injuries. Utility lines have been disrupted, and there has been major damage to buildings. But taking into consideration a bad experience, we are stabilizing, and things could be much worse.
Well, we've all seen the damage in San Francisco, awful indeed. However, the folks in Santa Cruz say maybe they had the hardest hit area. Of course, that's about where the epicenter was. We're going to take a look at some video right now from Channel 8 in Salinas. This is KSBW's video. And the people there are saying, because they were so close to the center of the earthquake, this is the worst area. KSBW is reporting 6 deaths in the Santa Cruz area. We had reports that are 8. Of course, they're all unconfirmed reports at this point, and you're going to hear varying numbers where death tolls and injuries are concerned throughout the morning hours. And we'll try to be as accurate as we can for you. Obviously, street, pavement just collapsed. And there's really not a lot you can say about it. If these people got out alive, they are very lucky. Storefronts. Obviously, some cars going to be damaged along the curbs. People losing their homes, their livelihoods. And how long it's going to take to reconstruct all this is going to be difficult to estimate. Okay, that is what happened in Santa Cruz. KSBW TV video, and they are reporting 6 deaths near the epicenter, which was about 10 miles north of the city of Santa Cruz. In the East Bay, Alameda, and Danville, of course, they felt the earthquake as well, along with the rest of the Bay Area. However, their structural damage along with Contra Costa County was minimal, if any. Contra Costa County, Concord, Walnut Creek areas not too badly hit. However, there were power outages earlier, and as we told you throughout the evening, Concord schools and the Mount Diablo Unified School District will have school tomorrow. Of course, San Francisco, Oakland schools will be closed, and a little bit later on we're going to pass some phone numbers along to you if you need some information, along with ferries and what's going to be available if you need to get to the city or back from San Francisco. There will be ferries from Jack London Square or to Jack London Square from San Francisco, and we will be passing along that information along to you a little bit later. As for the morning commute, we cannot reiterate enough that Mayor Art Agnos of San Francisco is saying that if you don't have to go into the city, you don't want to go into the city, and that the Golden Gate Bridge will not have tolls from 6 in the morning to midnight. Right now, we're going to take a look at what happened at an Alameda Safeway supermarket earlier this evening. And I was talking to a friend of mine in Marin County whose mother-in-law was in a supermarket in San Rafael area, and said when she was there when the earthquake hit, everything just came tumbling off the shelves. And obviously that's what happened at this Alameda Safeway store. There is an appeal right now for blood donations in the wake of this earthquake disaster. It's been issued by Dr. Bruce Haynes. He is the director of the California Medical Emergency Authority. He says individuals willing to donate blood are requested to contact either their blood bank or their local Red Cross Wednesday during working hours, 8:30 to 5 in the afternoon, 9 in the morning to 5, whatever they may be. And Haynes could not estimate immediately how much blood would be needed because the full toll of injured people is not yet known. Of course, there will be calls for blood, especially in the Alameda County area where the stretch of 880, the 2-mile stretch along the Cypress section collapsed, and of course in San Francisco where all the fires and the damage there. Right now, let's take a look at what is happening with the roads. And we're going to tell you what's open. The Golden Gate Bridge, again, no toll between 6 in the morning and noon on Wednesday. The San Mateo Bridge is now open. The Dumbarton Bridge is open. Richmond-San Rafael Bridge has been open continuously, as has been the Carquinez Bridge, so that's where you can travel, as well as the Benicia Bridge. Highway 101 South, that's from San Francisco, south of the Bay Bridge, obviously, because that's closed, and Highway 880 southbound through San Leandro, they are open. Also open, Highway 580 east through Oakland to Castro Valley, and Highway 80 as you're heading east to Sacramento. Those roads will be open. These are the schools that will be open. University of California at Berkeley, they'll be open. And the Mount Diablo Unified School District in Concord and surrounding communities, as we told you just a few minutes ago, they will be open on Wednesday. Here's what's closed. The Bay Bridge, obviously, there is a chunk of the bridge which is leaning against the bottom part of the bridge. And they say could be Thursday when that part of the bridge is be able to be open. BART will not be running until further notice. Highway 101 northbound at Candlestick to 3rd Street in San Francisco is closed right now. 6th Street in Townsend in San Francisco is also closed. Highway 280 at 85 in the South Bay in both directions. Highway 17 south of Los Gatos is closed. Presidio entrances to the Golden Gate Bridge. You're not going to get on that way. Highway 1 at Moss Landing is closed. 129 near Green Valley. 152 at Heckler Pass. Highway 17 and 9 and all mountain passes are closed on Wednesday until further notice. These are the schools that are closed. Hayward State, Cal State at Hayward is going to be closed. The Oakland Public Schools, San Francisco Public Schools, the Palo Alto Schools, and the Acalanes Unified Schools are going to be closed on Wednesday, along with San Francisco State University, Fremont Union High School, the Sunnyvale Elementary Schools, the San Jose School District will be closed, as will Berkeley. San Jose State University will be closed. Los Gatos Elementary will be closed. Lawrence Academy in San Jose closed. And all Catholic schools will be closed, as will the Piedmont schools, because of the earthquake on Tuesday. Now, beginning at 6 in the morning, the Red and White Fleet is going to run ferries to San Francisco from Jack London Square in Oakland. So if you want to avoid the bridges at all costs, you might want to get down to Jack London Square earlier than 6 o'clock, maybe 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, and make sure you can get a place on the ferry boat as it goes into the San Francisco area. Right now, we're going to find out what type of earthquake we had. Obviously, it was very powerful. They say the worst since 1906. What can we expect in the next few days ahead? Let's hear from an expert.
The earthquake occurred along the San Andreas Fault System in the Santa Cruz Mountains, about 10 miles northeast of Santa Cruz and 20 miles south of San Jose. The Berkeley magnitude is 7 on the Richter scale. There have also been a number of aftershocks, one of which is about magnitude 5 on the Richter scale.
Those aftershocks hit, as I recall, they were about 10 minutes apart.
The biggest one was about a half hour.
And that was how big?
Approximately magnitude 5. We have not had time to go through and determine the magnitude of all the aftershocks that we've been recording in the last few hours here. The aftershocks are scattering over about a 30-mile range of the San Andreas Fault System, roughly north and south of Lake Elsman, where the earthquakes, 2 magnitude 5 earthquakes occurred in the last couple of years in that area.
This earthquake, is this, people are going to say, is this the big one? Is this the area of the San Andreas that might have expected that?
It's a major earthquake, and it's one of the 2 areas in the Bay, 2 fault segments in the Bay Area where the potential was very high for an earthquake in the magnitude 7 range. The first one was the one where the earthquake occurred this evening, and the second one is the northern segment of the Hayward Fault Zone here in the East Bay.
We were getting reports of major damage in Hollister. How does one explain that, given the epicenter we're talking about?
Well, when you have an earthquake at the magnitude 7 level, or anything over about 6.5, you'll get widespread damage over easily a radius of 50 miles. And Hollister is less than 50 miles away from the Santa Cruz Mountain epicentral region.
Well, in terms of the iffy science of prediction, were you getting? I know you monitor the daily operations of the lab, UC Seismology Lab. Were you getting any indications? Was there any hint of anything like this coming?
No, there's no way that we have, by monitoring just local seismicity in an area, of predicting the occurrence of very large earthquakes like the one that occurred today.
And looking to the future, how are we on predicting in terms of aftershocks? Obviously, we can expect many, I suppose.
Typically, when you have a magnitude 7, you're going to have numerous aftershocks. We could easily get over 100 aftershocks of magnitude 2.5 and larger, and several of those aftershocks will be over magnitude 4 within the next few days.
In terms of what kind of power those aftershocks of 4 and about, buildings, structures, the Bay Bridge, for example, things already weakened, are these powerful?
It would be unlikely that a magnitude 4 would do any further damage. They would be felt over the area of the South Bay, but they would not necessarily be felt, say, 50 miles away.
The last time we had an earthquake that made big news, I can't remember the exact date, but there was an advisory issued that percentage chance of strong earthquake in the next 3-4 days was good.
Well, it was actually very low. It was like 2% or 3%, so the probability was 95 to 97% that it would not occur.
And that would apply now? In other words, we're sort of starting from zero again?
Yes, each time you have a big main shock, you do get aftershocks. The most probable thing is that a big aftershock, if it's going to occur, will occur very soon in time after the main shock, and we have seen one at approximately magnitude 5 about a half hour after the main shock. And it's not very likely that we would have other large aftershocks of that size or larger in the next few days, but it's not impossible for that to occur.
Okay. Anything else we should know about? Obviously, we're all just people are jittery, and
just be aware that you will probably feel a few of the aftershocks over a period of the next few days.
And at this point, what does this do in the long term? Several people around this newsroom have said, if this wasn't the big one, I don't want to be here when it hits. What do you tell them?
Well, the main difference between these large earthquakes is that any earthquake over magnitude, when you get to magnitude 6.5 on the Richter scale, you reach a point at which you get the maximum amount of damage per square mile to ordinary structures. The only real difference between a 6.5 and a 7.5 and an 8.5 is that the number of square miles damaged goes up, but the amount of damage per square mile remains roughly constant. The reason for that's very simple. A magnitude 6.5 earthquake is caused by rupture of a fault like the San Andreas over a span of maybe 10 or 15 miles. A magnitude 7 will be caused by a rupture of the same fault, but instead of going only 10 or 15 miles along the fault, it might do 30 or 40 miles along the fault or more, 30, 40, 50 miles. And a magnitude 8.5 could do 200 plus miles along the same fault. And so the part of the ground shaking that really does damage to structures is due to the local proximity of the fault, the close-in rupture of the fault, and not the rupture that's 100 miles down the range. And so the end point is that anything over 6.5, at 6.5 and larger, you maximum out on the amount of ground shaking that you get and the damage you get to ordinary structures.
So just to recap, you're at putting it at a 7 at the moment,
Right,
and
that's correct.
Will that stand a good chance of being revised in the days and weeks to come?
Well, it'll be revised when we get all the instrumental records in for it. But the best records that we have available to us at the current time indicate magnitude 7.
Dr. Robert Urhammer, UC Seismology Lab, thank you very much for calling.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
All right, let's check in with what's going on in San Francisco right now. Maybe there's a little more calm in the air. Rita Williams is near the Golden Gate Bridge right now to give us the latest. Rita?
Eric, I'm at the Golden Gate Bridge, but I'm going to show you some pictures in a few minutes of the Bay Bridge. We told you earlier that we hiked from the San Francisco side to the East Bay side where the fissure was, or the collapse was, on the Bay Bridge. The two cars that were underneath the bridge when the top section collapsed, there were 4 people in these cars, 2 in each, and no one was hurt. It is just amazing. You see a helicopter there, a Coast Guard chopper that was airlifting people off the top deck of the bridge, of the 3rd car that we told you jumped the bridge a little bit later. In a few moments, we're going to listen to an interview, first with Douglas Berghardt, who's an AC bus driver. He was the bus driver in the bus, as you see here, that stopped just about 8 or 9 feet from falling into the bay. This is what he had to say about controlling the bus.
Oh yes, no question. We were going side to side, and that's what a blowout would do. It would veer you, and it was veering us. We were going side to side. So that's what I thought it was. But I checked the side view mirror, and I saw absolutely no tire rubbish, no nothing. I knew then it was something else. Then the cable, there was a cable that broke in front of us, and then that was it. I knew, and I had to stop. And I was stopping all the time, but I mean, I had to really stop. And I used everything that they had taught me in the training center, and everything I've ever known, I used. And it was like the movies, you know, where you see the people fall in the hole. It was like that. It wasn't, you know, it was just like that.
Jumped off the bus. One couple had just been getting out, and another couple was climbing up on the side with 70, 80 foot drop water below them. I grabbed them, pulled them off, and surprisingly, the worst injury I saw of those 4 people was a cut lip.
But you were telling me about a 3rd car.
About 30 minutes after, a 3rd car came 50 to 60 miles on the upper deck going towards Oakland, and he tried to jump it kind of like Dukes of Hazzard. He didn't make it, but he made it far enough where his car held. I'm not sure where the injuries are as of now, but it was unreal. I just couldn't believe someone would do that. It was a good 40, 30 feet maybe between each span, and this person at high speed tried to jump it. It was just scared me.
That person you just heard from was Tom Blackwood from Oakland. He works for a San Francisco law firm and was on that AC Transit bus that stopped just a few feet from going into the bay. Now, he was talking about the person who flew overhead 30 minutes or so after the earthquake, trying to run the gap in the bridge. Apparently, that person, we are told, died. He referred to the person as he. We understand it was indeed a woman, however. That's the situation here. We also have been over at 6th and Townsend tonight, an area where we told you earlier, a building, the facade, the top floor of a building fell down onto some cars and crushed the people in those cars leaving work. Of course, this was rush hour, and we're told that they have now recovered 5 bodies from that wreckage. 5 bodies, and the footage, the area there, the cars we have seen are so flattened, and there's heavy, heavy boulders on them that they're still not sure what they might find when they are able to get in there tomorrow and remove some of the debris. So this city has taken a terrible hit. I've been told that there are at least 10 to 12 fatalities in San Francisco. There was 1 on the bridge we told you about, at least 5 at 6th and Townsend, and perhaps another 5 or 6 in the Marina District from the fire. At least 10 to 12 fatalities here in San Francisco. Eric?
Okay, Rita, as far as the residents in the city right now, are they heeding the word in staying out of the streets and staying home, staying put?
Eric, some people are out, as I said earlier, just sightseeing, which is kind of unfortunate to see. They have their flashlights and they're just walking around to see what indeed they can see. So it's scattered throughout the city. Now, obviously, we've shown you the worst. Let me back up a little bit and calm some people's fears that the entire city has not collapsed, is not engulfed in fire like in 1906. We have shown you the worst things in San Francisco. There are many, many parts of the city that, even though they don't have power and don't have lights, there's no damage and there are no injuries. But some people are sightseeing and some people are not staying home, and as we've told you earlier, there is looting in parts of the city tonight.
Okay, we are going to get through this one. And thank you very much, Rita Williams, near the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And let me tell you about what happens if you don't have power in your house and you smell gas. Get the candles out and just turn everything off. And you might even, if you don't know how to check the gas yourself and make sure everything's okay, you might want to get out of your house. This, of course, if you don't have power, you're watching us on a battery-powered television. But that's what you want to do. You want to be as careful as possible. And as PG&E said earlier, San Francisco should start getting electricity back in the parts that don't have it by about 10:30 in the morning, and then working their way into the peninsula. Let's talk about San Francisco International Airport. Now, we heard earlier that there was going to be a meeting at midnight to talk about when air traffic would be started to and from SFO because of structural damage at the airport. We don't have a word on that right now, but I can tell you that a lot of the posh hotels in San Francisco are full in the hallways. People are just stretching out anywhere they can, looking for shelter tonight, and we wish them all well, especially the out-of-towners who got caught in this unfortunate tragedy. Now let's talk about what is happening in the Bay Area. The death toll from the earthquake is rising. It is about 250 right now, and it's going to increase into the morning. Police are hesitant right now to try to extricate the bodies from cars crushed to a foot high beneath tons of debris from the collapse of the double-decked 880 freeway in Oakland, which of course is right across the Bay Bridge. The California Highway Patrol says 250 people are dead beneath that rubble. And just in that area, as Rita told you earlier, there are maybe 12 fatalities in San Francisco. The stories emerging from the rescue efforts right now are harrowing, to say the least. Rescue workers have been forced to amputate the leg of a 7-year-old boy who was trapped in the family car, and the bodies of his parents crushed in the front seat. The earthquake lasted just 15 seconds, 5:04 in the afternoon. It shattered building facades, windows of buildings along the San Andreas Fault. Again, the estimated strength of the big quake, 6.9 to 7, a 15-second earthquake. And here's what the rescuers had to put up with tonight.
You were one of the men that pulled him out. Tell me what the scene was like.
There was nothing to tell. It was just bad. I mean, you know, it was just a bad scene. There was only 2 feet of room to work for height-wise, and he was completely stuck, and we didn't have the equipment there at first to pull him out with. Both of his legs were stuck underneath, and he was stuck underneath the overpass, so it was not, you know, 2 feet. And that's it. He was stuck between the seat and the top.
You figure the truck was about this high, and while we were under there, it was about that high, huh?
And he was stuck laid
And he was laid down. One leg was on one side of the steering wheel. The other leg was on the other side of the steering wheel. Both legs were broken. We had to get power tools and cut the steering wheel off. At one point, he wanted us to cut his leg off just to get him out. And for a second there, me and Andy thought he was going to die on us. He was hyperventilating under there.
He did good. He was a brave kid.
Were you surprised that you were able to get him out alive?
No, not once. Once I realized how strong he was underneath there and how determined he was. No, I wasn't. It was just a time of getting to him and keep telling him, yes, we're working on you. You know, that was the hard part. Keep reinforcing that, hey, we are trying, but it just was so hard to get.
They had someone up there strong like Andy.
Well, the crowd broke into cheers when you all lifted him out. Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah, we heard him.
Hey, the crowd was great. We got a lot of help from the people around here, and we really appreciate it.
They were in tight quarters, and they saved a man's life. Thank you. They're heroes in my book. Thank you.
What's your name?
My name's Frank Manabusen.
And where? You live in Oakland?
I live in Alameda.
And what's your name, sir?
Andy Papp.
Andy
Papp.
The heavily populated Bay Area obviously is going to have the most amount of fatalities because of the traffic on 880, on the Bay Bridge in San Francisco. However, they are saying the worst damage perhaps is in Santa Cruz County. That's where the epicenter of the earthquake is, about 10 miles north of Santa Cruz itself. The latest report we hear from KSBW, you're looking at the video channel 8 in Salinas, is 6 deaths. We have heard reports that perhaps 8 people were killed in Santa Cruz County. But KSBW is reporting 6, and you're going to hear, like I said earlier, you're going to hear varying reports on death tolls, injury reports throughout the morning hours. Somebody getting mouth-to-mouth, facades of buildings coming down, people losing businesses, pavements, streets just cracking. Easily could swallow a car, make heavy damage, and it's just absolutely it's remarkable what happened. What is going on right now at 880 at the Cypress Overpass? Let's check in with Channel 2's John Fowler and see what's going on. John standing by live. John?
Well, Eric, we're about 2 blocks away now from the Cypress elevated section of Highway 880. John, if you want to pan over and take a look at it, it is utterly devastated. Now, police have moved us back here about 4 blocks because they say they're afraid this superstructure may... Bound lanes on the bottom, the eastbound lanes on the top. The top section collapsed onto the bottom section. Now, one of the problems here, of course, is that this is a very heavily traveled part of the freeway, and there were dozens of cars trapped inside. Officials are now saying something over 100 people will be found dead here, perhaps as many as 200. The county coroner has asked for help in setting up cold storage for the bodies that they do expect to find here tonight because the coroner's building simply does not have the capacity. Now, earlier this afternoon, at about 5:45 or 5:45, soon as this dust had settled here, volunteers started coming out from literally all over the East Bay. There were people who thought they had friends on the freeway, people who felt that they may know someone in the area, coming out to try to find people up on this collapsed freeway. People climbed up onto it, risked their own lives, searching out those who did survive. Dozens of people were pulled out. More than 80 people were told were pulled out of here. Many have gone to local hospitals, some miraculously with just minor injuries. There are remarkable stories from the people who have survived. And there are also the tragedies for those who have not. And there, as I say, may be as many as 200 or more people who may have died here. The reason why is because this was such a concentrated area for travel at this time of the afternoon. 5:04 in the afternoon, peak of the rush hour. People headed towards San Francisco on the lower deck were crushed by the upper deck falling on top. The upper deck also suffered, people on the upper deck also suffered injuries, and I'm told some deaths up there too when their vehicles went out of control. Some vehicles went off that upper structure and down onto the roadway below. Now they have evacuated, as I said, the area directly around it. They have moved us back because of the fear of this collapsing, and they have also now begun inspecting some of the cement work around here to see just what the damage may be. It certainly will be a week or two or maybe more before we know fully what has gone on inside there, because the massive amount of iron and steel as well as cement that is in this freeway superstructure. So Erica, from this point here, it is just an amazing sight. It boggles the mind to look at this and realize that this freeway is no longer here, and there are so many dead people up there.
John, because of the fear of further collapse and because the inspectors are checking out the cement, is there any idea, have the rescuers been able to give you any indication when they might be able to start extricating bodies out again and at least putting family members at home's fears to rest, one way or the other?
They've put that on hold for the moment. They want to check and make sure that the superstructure will not collapse and endanger the rescuers and those who are trying to extricate the bodies. They have taken many out at this point, but it's going to be quite some time, I think, before they're able to really get in there and move the cement, as they'll have to with heavy equipment, and be certain that it won't collapse again.
John Fowler, thank you very much again. The latest death toll we heard is about 250 people. And of course, if you were at Candlestick Park around 5 o'clock this afternoon, be grateful that you weren't there about 8 o'clock in the evening and that it happened then, and that maybe the game was in the third, fourth, fifth inning, and that it was dark outside. Be grateful. And right now, if you are joining us because you just got power back, you missed a lot of coverage here at Channel 2 and what happened earlier this evening. You're seeing pretty much what is going on right now, a little bit of the aftermath. And we are going to recap a lot of the coverage. First, before we do that, I want to repeat for you. If you are commuting into San Francisco or maybe into Marin County in the morning, there is no toll on the Golden Gate Bridge from 6 in the morning to 12 noon. Because of the Bay Bridge being closed, this will open up a lot of traffic, keep it flowing a little bit better. Maybe other bridges will be doing it. You'll probably find out as you cross those bridges. Anyway, that is the latest. No tolls on the Golden Gate Bridge from 6 this morning until noon. Anyway, as I was starting to say, if you're joining us right now because your power just came on, maybe your power came on about 9 o'clock as it did in my house out in Contra Costa County, you missed a lot of the coverage, what was going on earlier this evening, a lot of the immediacy of what was going on. And so right now we're going to let you see what happened, and we're going to begin our coverage with Randy Shandeville.
And that is obviously why there are so many fatalities from that area. There are also apparently some fatalities on the ground in that section of Oakland. There are crews there right now. It is impossible to get an accurate count of the people injured and dead there because it's impossible to get under the structure to see exactly what's going on. There have been some people trying to count the cars that are trapped, but even that is proven difficult. Even on the upper deck, which we cannot see here, but on the upper deck, some of the vehicles that were traveling on the upper deck, the shaking was so violent, they were completely turned over onto their roofs, trucks jackknifed. Fires were smoldering from engines from other cars, totally lost control and drove into guardrails on the upper deck. Once again, it's a very chaotic scene there. We urge people not to go out there. Rescue vehicles need access in and out, all the access they can have. And as soon as we can get confirmed reports of just how many people have been hurt, we will get them to you.
One woman said as she was driving up to the ramp, it happened, the earthquake happened, and she said she looked up, she couldn't believe it, but all she could hear was people screaming, just trying to get to safety.
From the air, it was one of the most frightening, disturbing things I've ever seen. Again, I'm guessing, but it seemed to be about a mile or a mile and a half section of road, and along that upper deck, you just saw ripples and an undulating path, and your mind raced with what you speculated was underneath that heavy roadbed. It was very disturbing.
When you hear about it, it's one thing, and then when you actually see it, and it's another thing altogether. It's actually it's much worse than what you first hear about.
Faith Thatcher mentioned that it appeared that rippling motion was caused by where there were cars under it.
That's what I was guessing. Again, I'm from the, I was seeing it from the air, and it's hard to know, but that certainly seemed to be the case. Bumps in the roadway, and parts of the roadway falling down to the street level. As anyone who's familiar with that area would know, that both levels of the roadway are overpasses above the streets there, one deck on top of the other. And the upper deck collapsing onto the lower deck sent portions of the lower deck collapsing
Down
onto
to
the street.
Right.
And so some people on the street were hurt, and but most of the injuries and deaths seem to be on the lower deck of that Cypress structure. That would have been people traveling from the East Bay towards the Bay Bridge and towards, or if they were splintering off up on 80, they'd be heading up towards Berkeley.
We heard that at least 4 to 6 people were killed on the ground, and then the rest were the actual top layer went into the bottom layer.
Yes.
And it could be as many as 53 dead.
Well, 53 dead are confirmed, 400 injured are confirmed, and we've been hearing unconfirmed reports of many more. We've been on the phone trying to verify it with different offices, and quite frankly, I've been getting different figures from different offices, and I'm almost afraid to say what I'm hearing.
Well, we'll say that until we get it confirmed, Randy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you have for us now, Dennis?
Well, let's go now to Leslie Griffith, I believe. Is she's standing by now with an update for us?
At the Cypress structure, the place we've been talking about. Leslie?
Okay, well, Elaine and Dennis, we've just been told to move back, and one of the reasons that we're being told to move back is that PG&E is here, and they're trying to get some lights on this area. If you can imagine, lights are out in this entire area, and so you've got officers going in there, and they're trying to find people, and they don't have the lights to do it. So that's what officials are doing at this hour. I want to show you some tape from a little bit earlier. I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of this, and I also want to tell you that we were hoping to have some idea how many people were injured by now. We can only tell you that officers at this point do not know. There are so many different rescues going on in different areas right now, and ever since we've been here, we got here at about 5:30 this afternoon. There were so many different rescues in so many different areas that no one knows for sure how many people have been rescued, or at least no one is telling us at this hour. Now, we can also tell you that we have confirmed that several people, 5 people in the last 2 hours, I was told, have been rescued. Oddly enough, several of them are doing really well. In fact, I believe this is the 24-year-old man who was rescued. Apparently had been able to lay down in his car. He was completely flat in his car when they found him. Officers are also telling me that one of the problems is that when they go in there between these 2 levels of the freeway, the cars in the worst section, the section closest to the Bay Bridge, the cars are in some cases as flat as their license plates. So we have no idea how many cars are in this stretch of freeway, how many are trapped between these 2 decks. I have not heard any reports of anyone screaming for help recently. Of course, that's the sign that we want to hear. We're hoping to hear more reports of that, but we have not heard any reports of anyone calling for help in the last 45 minutes since this young man was rescued. It is just an incredible scene here at this hour. Fremont police are here, Hayward police are here, Oakland police are here. I mean, every single emergency crew that you can imagine is standing around. They are trying to figure out what to do. Right now, they're down to the basics. They're trying to get some light so that they can just take a look and see in between these 2 decks, see what's going on. Now, we can tell you that we have heard reports that the National Guard is out here. We have seen a couple of men in military uniforms, so we are assuming that maybe some military men have been called in to help. And Dennis and Elaine, as soon as we get any idea how many people, how many fatalities there are out here, then we will let you know. We do understand that AC Transit has a couple of buses being used, and those are being used as temporary morgues, and we are told that the people, the bodies in those buses will be taken to a school that is also being used as a temporary morgue, but it's pretty chaotic out here. Dennis and Elaine?
Okay, Leslie, thank you. Leslie Griffin reporting from there that collapsed section of 880, the Cypress structure in Oakland. We understand now that with everything that's going on, they have to move, so we will get back to them as quickly as we can.
We have gotten a report now that 8 people have been confirmed dead in Santa Cruz County. Highway 1 is still closed at Watsonville. Highland Hospital is reporting that they are getting at least 20 to 30 patients from the Cypress structure. 7 have serious traumas, and they are not reporting any fatalities at this point. We'd like to now update you on the roads that are open in the Bay Area, and you'll be seeing those on your screen right now. This is the Road and Bridge report, the late report that we have now. The Golden Gate Bridge is open. That has been open all day long. The San Mateo Bridge was closed earlier. It is open now. The Dumbarton Bridge has been opened all day. Richmond-San Rafael Bridge has been open, and the Carquinez Bridge is open.
Now, let's tell you about the highways that are open. Well, also the Benicia Bridge is open. Highway 101 southbound, I understand, is open. That's southbound from San Francisco. Highway 880 southbound through San Leandro. And I understand that turns into 17 as it gets further down. Highway 580 east through Oakland to Castro Valley is open. Highway 80 to Sacramento is open.
The schools that are open, UC Berkeley will be open tomorrow. Mount Diablo Unified School District will be open tomorrow. Concord and surrounding communities, all of these schools will be open tomorrow. So if you have schools, children going to schools in these areas, they will be going tomorrow.
Now we'll tell you what you should not try to do. The Bay Bridge, of course, is shut down. That will be for at least a couple of days, if not more. Highway 101 northbound at Candlestick to 3rd Street is closed. 6th Street in Townsend is closed in San Francisco.
Also closed Highway 280 at 85 in the South Bay. That's in both directions. Highway 17 is closed south of Los Gatos, and that's causing problems in that area. And the Presidio entrances to the Golden Gate Bridge. Additional roads, there's more schools that are closed.
Well, let's say about these first. Cal State Hayward is closed. San Francisco, Oakland schools, Palo Alto schools, Acalanes Unified schools, all those districts are closed.
San Francisco State University is closed. Fremont Union High, Sunnyvale Elementaries, and the San Jose schools are closed. Beginning at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, the Red and White Fleet will run ferries to San Francisco from Jack London Square in Oakland. So that is how you can get from San Francisco to Oakland, from Oakland to San Francisco by the Red and White Fleet, and they are offering free rides.
Well, we want to show you some dramatic footage right now of moments after the bridge collapse. This is what was taking place. Now, keep in mind that the direction that it collapsed, the cars were facing the other direction. They would have to back cars off starting from the back, and you know people aren't going to sit on that bridge and, you know, after they see it collapse, and wait for them to back cars off. So what they do, what you would do too, probably, they are streaming off that bridge on foot.
And this is a sight we have never seen in our lifetimes, of course. People just abandoning their cars, the wounded right there on the bridge being stretched out, people coming with blankets to help them.
But you can imagine yourself what you would do if you were in a situation.
We're just going to turn the cars around and try to get them off.
That's what we can. Yes, ma'am. No doubt you wouldn't just sit in your car and
absolutely not.
I would get off and leave mine, especially if I saw a section of the bridge collapse.
I talked to some people earlier tonight, and they said they were about 15 cars back of where the bridge actually collapsed, and it was just panic.
Let's go to Rita. Rita was in San Francisco, and you were there when this tape was shot. Tell us what you saw and what was going on. You could probably do a better job explaining it than we can.
Well, Dennis, what you saw that first footage of people coming off the bridge. Now that's when we started onto the bridge shortly after the earthquake hit. And people started just pouring out of the bridge. Now a lot of these people were on buses and they were telling them just to get off the bridge. So people started walking off. Now unfortunately by that, some of the people who left the bridge were not just bus riders, some of them left their cars on the bridge. Now tonight we were the last vehicle, we came with an AC Transit bus, the last people to get off the bridge tonight about 8:30, and people had abandoned their cars on the bridge. It was obviously a hazard, so they were towing cars right and left. Now the woman you just saw on the ground there, she either had had a heart attack or a seizure. No one seemed to know at the time. This police officer is a CHP officer. His job was to go up and down the bridge and try to tell people to stay with their cars and to just wait. And the plan was that they would start on the San Francisco side of the bridge, and they, one by one, started turning cars around. You'll see here in a moment where you see cars going all different directions. This guy is turning around. Some cars were going toward the East Bay, some were going back to San Francisco, some were across on the bridge. There was a lot of pandemonium on the bridge. There was no communication. There was no one to tell them what to do. This CHP officer was about the only guy we saw. People were stopping us, asking us what to do. There was an FBI agent who flashed his badge to me and asked me what the CHP officers were telling him further down the line. Now, that's just a sample of what people were doing on the bridge. That continued all the way up to Treasure Island. And at Treasure Island, they actually were having people turn their cars around on Treasure Island and go back on the upper deck, the part that had collapsed, but on the San Francisco side of the collapse, and turn around and drive back into San Francisco. Now, as we got closer to the cave-in part of the Bay Bridge, there were, what you see again, there were cars that were abandoned. There were strips that had no one on it near Yerba Buena and Treasure Island. I might say that Navy sailors were recruited. There was a USS Gridley that just ported in Treasure Island, and all of the guys were volunteered, they said, and kind of laughed, to help on the Bay Bridge tonight, and they did a tremendous job on trying to help people off the bridge and to direct traffic. Some people tried to turn around and walk off the bridge or walk across to the East Bay side, but as you can see in these pictures here, this is the part that was caved in tonight. People could not get across to the East Bay side, even though they walked the entire length of the bridge hoping that they could. Now the car you see is the car that fell from the top deck of the bridge to the bottom deck of the bridge, and the other car that you saw was the car that was on the lower deck and was caught by the falling span of the bridge that fell from up above. Now, as I say, there was an AC Transit bus driver that I hope that you will be able to hear sometime later tonight, who is being credited with being a hero. He stopped his bus loaded with 25, 30 passengers on it, he said. He felt like it was a tire had blown out on his bus, and he said it was just totally out of control. He's been driving since 1981. He said, I tried to remember everything they ever told me about driving a bus, and somehow he managed to bring his bus to a halt 8 or 9 feet before the hole in the bridge. His bus, all the passengers would have gone into the bay had he not been able to stop that bus just a few feet before the end of the bridge. Now, one of the Marines on his bus is credited with getting out and pulling the people that I told you about, the 4 people who were in those cars, the 2 cars you just saw, and who survived without really a scratch on them. Helped pull them out of their cars and then to start directing traffic and take care of people and helping with a panic situation. But there are so many heroes in this city and all across the Bay Area tonight, people who literally pulled together to try to help each other. Dennis?
Rita, I believe earlier we had a picture of that bus. You could see it, the shots that we took from the helicopter earlier, we could see that bus. And as you described, it was only 8 or 9 feet from the edge, and we could only surmise then that he saw the gaping hole and slammed on his brakes in what might have been a panic stop.
Actually, he did not see the hole. I mean, that's what, you know, a matter of seconds is what we're talking about here. The bus driver said all he knew was that his bus was out of control. Passengers on that bus said they were literally rocking from side to side in the bus, and he said the bus was careening from lane to lane. Luckily, there was not much traffic on the Bay Bridge at that point going eastbound. I guess everybody was coming to Candlestick Park for the Bay Bridge World Series, and there weren't many people going eastbound right then. Miraculously, he did not hit any other cars, and he managed to bring his bus to a halt, as we say, just a few feet before the bridge. And then he said it sunk in as to, my God, the bridge has fallen right in front of me, and we literally were a few feet from dying here.
I think what you said.
And that's how our coverage earlier this evening looked. I am now joined by my colleague from 2 at noon, Terry Lowry, who is at Candlestick Park. When it happened, I'm going to ask you about that in just a second. We would like to hear your experiences. If you would like to share them with us, give us a call toll-free right now at 1-800-TV2-NEWS. 1-800-TV2-NEWS. We would like to hear from you and hear what you had to go through and maybe share common experiences. Also, want to make one safety mention here. If you smell gas in your house or you fear gas leaking somewhere in your house, do not use a candle, okay? Use a flashlight. If that information got jumbled up a little before, we apologize. I don't think that's what we said, but a couple people did think that's what we said. You do not light a candle, use a flashlight. And in San Francisco, PG&E says electricity should start coming on by about 10:30 in the morning. Now, before we get to Candlestick, how did you get here tonight? Because you live around Diamond Heights.
We live in Diamond Heights in San Francisco, and we got on 101 and took it to the San Mateo Bridge with no problem. But as I was traveling on 101 toward downtown San Francisco and then to take the cutoff to San Jose, much of the 280 interchange there, 101, 280 interchange, was blocked off by CHP and police officers because of presumably structural damage, or at least they're checking for that. 101 was no problem. The off-ramp for the airport was also blocked by CHP officers. San Mateo Bridge was open, no problem. There was traffic on it, not an awful lot of it, which I was glad to see. And then 880 was fine, coming north on 880 toward Oak Street, where we got off here at KTVU.
And that's probably the best advice. If you don't have to go on the roads at all, stay off the roads.
I was listening to the radio, and of course that was the advice and the warning that we were getting over and over and over, and I thought to myself, oh, okay.
Now let's talk about what happened at 5:04. You were getting ready to watch a ball game.
Yes, I was in Candlestick Park with about 62,000 other people, although I don't think all of the people were actually in the park at the time. Apparently quite a few people were outside in the perimeter and in the parking lot as well, trying to get in. And at about 5:04, as I was sitting in the upper deck, section 5, which is just to the right of home plate, with a very good view of the entire stadium, I started feeling just a little bit of rumbling, and then I thought, no, this can't be. Every time I go into a stadium, I'm afraid there'll be an earthquake, and here it is coming. And it just built an intensity over a few seconds' time. It wasn't a very long time, and I actually saw Candlestick Park, the stadium itself, ripple. It moved. It gyrated as this, what we found out later was a 7.0 earthquake.
Yeah, that's how it was here at the station. I was in an office and I looked outside and saw a conference room. Glass was like on rollers.
But Eric, this was the entire stadium filled with thousands and thousands of people. And I mean, you know, there was a hush over the crowd as the earthquake continued, and when it stopped, it was still quiet. And finally, everybody broke into applause. I'm not sure if that was releasing nervous tension, or we survived this, or what it was exactly.
Or they were just in a celebrating mood to begin with, maybe.
Something like that.
Was there a lot of panic in the stands?
There was no panic. I saw no panic whatsoever, and that was the next thing that I thought of, is everybody going to jump up and start trying to run out? And nobody did anything. Everyone sat quietly in their seats as though we were all waiting for someone to tell us what to do next. And as it turned out, we waited not too long, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and there was an announcement in Candlestick from the booth announcer, I guess, saying, ladies and gentlemen, in case of an emergency, should we have to evacuate Candlestick Park, the upper deck should take the exits, and the lower deck folks should go out onto the field. And that's all we heard. And in the meantime, the police officers were milling down onto the playing field, and so were the players. And the crowd on the playing field became larger and larger. They actually established a command post near home base, at least that's what it looked like. But we still heard nothing because there was no public address system. The lights had gone out. Everything was just shut down.
I saw some video from people in the parking lot after the earthquake, and they looked like they were just kind of going, "Oh, this was great. You know, it was an earthquake and blah blah blah." Did anybody at all realize the severity of what had happened? Because obviously those people did not at that time.
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's almost as though a lot of people didn't really know how bad it was. And I don't know if everyone was just trying to put on a happy face for the situation or what. But everybody did remain very calm. A lot of people had radios, of course, and we were all tuned into our radios, and we were all giving those people who didn't have radios kind of a play-by-play of what was being said. And at first there wasn't an awful lot of information. We all knew that there had been an earthquake, and it was a long time before we knew what the magnitude was. And then little by little information started to trickle in, and the first particularly salient point was the Bay Bridge and what had happened there, and they started describing that. And after a long time, there was another aftershock, and at that aftershock,